Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach Enough channel, and in this video we finally get to the start of the 2026 NRL Supercoach season. So not quite, probably maybe about 36 hours after the end of BBL Supercoach and NRL, and I'm sure AFL as well. I haven't checked that one out yet, but both open. So we'll get in, we'll put in an updated team. So if you go to update your team, or it might go there by default. Last year it automatically transfer your team picker team if you have Supercoach Plus. This year you get the option of putting it in, which is pretty cool. But I guess for those that maybe are just joining in for the first time and haven't done that before, we'll go through a few of the quick basics. So you've got 11.95 million to spend in the salary cap, basically in line with the real life salary cap. You pick a squad of 26 players, and so those 26 comprise of 2 hookers, 4 front row forwards, 6 second row forwards, 2 halfbacks, 2 5/8s, 7 wing centres, or centre wings we usually call them because the abbreviation CTW. Fullbacks 2, and then a flex, which can basically be any position. So you can have a third fullback, you can have an eighth centre wing if you want, however you want to use it. So we'll put a team together based on where we're currently at. I'm going to be doing well to try and remember my team, so there might be a couple of changes as we go through. But with the hookers, there is a few that I'm interested in, and we'll probably do some videos in the coming weeks looking at the options and what my thoughts are on them. But at the moment, I'm going with the 2 cheaper options in Bailey Haywood and Brandon Smith. So Haywood getting the 90 or starting 9 role at the Dogs, hopefully can work his way up to being an 80-minute player. However, with the new substitute rules, if they do come in with having 6 on the bench, it may allow them to carry a hooker and he might not play 80 every game. But it's his position to start, so he has a bit of value baked in. So we'll take trust on that. And then Brandon Smith. So there's a few reports that he's been training in the starting team at South. Other reports saying there's, sort of a 3-way go for the starting hooker spot. I think someone like Brandon Smith could be useful with the new interchange rules if you start him at 9. And then you can bring Mamazelis in and spell Smith for a bit. And then he can come on in that small forward role, lock forward. So, he could get 50 minutes. Was hampered a lot by injury last year too, which affected his output. Obviously coming to the new club, that sort of thing. So I think a full preseason, hopefully he stays fit. I think he'll be an absolute bargain. In the front row, we are going to lock in Payne Haas as our sort of safe captaincy option every week. 56% ownership, so we do get to see the ownerships now, which is pretty cool. So I guess people just aren't overthinking it too much, just set and forget on Payne Haas. Front row forward 2, Mitch Barnett, coming back from his injury. He's proven to be a keeper in the past in the front row position. And so we'll back him in to get back to that sort of role. Mitch Barnett. Front row forward 3, Trey Mooney. So obviously stuck behind a pretty dominant forward pack there at Canberra. Has come across to Newcastle where he could very well start at prop forward. And given his PPM of the past, if he gets some minutes, he is going to be some good value at 440k. And then front row forward 4, Taniela Paseka. So probably Manly's number 1 prop. Just the low price because of the injury last year. As you can see, he only played 3 games, but averaged 48, which is well above his price at 33. So I think he's a pretty safe bet for front row forward 4. There is a couple other options, such as a Jesse Colquhoun, but again, we might talk about them in a future video. Excuse me. So second row forward one. I'm going to go with Angus Crichton. So a bit pottish at 13%. Um, not the most, or not the biggest point of difference. But with Sam Walker back fit and firing, um, and DC coming to the club, surely there'll be opportunities for him on the edge. So I think he can outscore his 62 average from last year. Second row forward number two, Leka Halasima. So average 50 last year. That was because he did spend some time coming off the bench early doors, but surely will establish himself as an 80-minute strike weapon there at the Warriors this season. Anticipating a breakout season for him. And second row forward three, David Fafita. Again, 60% owned. So we've seen what he's done in the past. He's coming to South. Wayne Bennett has a way of sort of capturing these somewhat lost souls and bringing them back to where they belong. So I think a lot of people will be on David Fafita to start the season. Second row forward, number four, Jermaine McEwen. So a fair bit of hype around this guy at Newcastle that he should get edge role vacated by the Englishman Kai Pearce-Paul. Um, so we'll see how it goes. There is a few options around that price, like a Heelan Lukey. Hamish Stewart is another viable option. So basically, that's reserved for a 400k second rower. At the moment, Jermaine McEwen's got the spot. Lazati, based on last season, would be the front runner for the vacant second row spot there at the Storm, with Eli Katoa out for the season. So at 270k, if he gets the start, he's a pretty easy pick. And then Cooper Bye. So a lot of chat about him at the Gold Coast. Had one game and went all right. Played well in the PNG internationals. So hopefully he can find a spot in the team, and we'll just have him there on the bench for the time being. Halfbacks. So I am going to go with Nathan Cleary in my current draft at number one. Um, have had Mitch Moses there for a long time. But I think, you add on, 10 points for the goal kicking, sweet. He only makes about 100k in cash, and then you've still got to find another 200 to get to Cleary. I know Penrith have a tough start to the season, and that, Cleary did play internationals and stuff, but for the majority of the squad, this is their longest off season in 5 years. So, and I think, they'll be hungry to reclaim their spot at the top of the pile. So I think Cleary is going to start all right. And at 14%, it's going to be a bit of a pod move. Halfback two, probably no real surprises here, but Ethan Sanders. So basically, whoever gets the nod there at the Raiders for the seven is going to get that spot, whether it's him or Kobe Black or Cody Black. What's his name? I'll look it up. Kobe Black. There you go. Um, But I think the whole reason they let Jamal Fogarty go was because they saw that they had Ethan Sanders there, and Ricky Stewart being a former halfback, you think he would know better than most. So happy to put him in the squad. At 5'8", I'll be honest, I'm not very keen on 5'8" as a position. As you can see, only two players sort of getting to 70. Munster and Fletcher Sharp. I think Fletcher Sharp may regress this season, um, with, I guess, Dylan Brown there playing a similar sort of role potentially. Um, and Cam Munster, um, you know, he's rock solid. We might be able to go him at some point. But the player I am looking at is Jackson Purdue. So the Cowboys have a pretty good schedule, and there's been a bit of chat that he might actually jag the 7 jersey. If not the 7, it sounds like he'll play in the centres. So I think either of those positions are better for his Supercoach scoring than playing 5'8", which he did a lot last year outside Tom Dearden. And I guess it's kind of turned in that position in um, the modern NRL game where it's like the second choice receiver, your halfback's your main playmaker. Um, but then also because they link it to the guys in the centres and the second row, they don't do a lot of running themselves per se. So, if Purdue's a bit wider, that's great. If he's the seven and the dominant sort of playmaker, that's great as well. And then Jonah Pezzett, so at his price and his potential upside, I think it's a no-brainer. Mitch Moses is always a chance of an injury too, so he could even slot in and become the dominant playmaker. So yeah, easy pick for our 5/8 bench option. Centre wing, so two big guns in Kiraz and Iro. I would like to get Herbie as well, but from memory, he's out of the price range at the moment. Um, but Kiraz and Iro both, hard running, you know, tackle busts, offloads, tries, all that stuff that we love for Supercoach. So Kira is very highly owned at 34%. Eero a bit more of a pot at 8%, so we like that. Um, After that, I've got to do some memory now. I know one player that I'm keen on that I reckon will be a super pod at the moment, Tane Tuapiki. So he finished the season, finished his season at the Warriors last year playing fullback. They moved CNK into the centres to accommodate him. He is a smaller framed guy, sort of in the Jai Gray mould. Um, but I think because of that, he can continue his development. Anytime we can get a fullback in our centre wing spot, I'm all for that. Campbell Graham is the next one, if I can find him. So we'll move out onto the right wing, which isn't the most ideal position at South with their stacked left edge. But you imagine he will have Jack White inside him, creating a bit. Um, Not sure who the halfback is yet, but yeah, Dave Feeder and the team will probably affect the second row edge on that side. I can't think of who it is right now. But yeah, I think Campbell Graham's proven that he can finish tries on the wing in the past, particularly at national level. So I think he does offer a bit of value, and I guess if he's playing wing as well, a lot of those tough carries, I think he'll be good for some tackle breaks and that sort of thing too. We'll put two cheapies in and see how much money we've got left, mostly because I can't remember. Tommy Chester, so I had him very early marked as a potential centre there at the Cowboys. Looks like a bit of news from up north as that he is the front runner for the centre spot there. He's just been super unlucky with injuries, so hopefully he can, hold that. And then David Farley. So it sounds like there could be two potential wing cheapies at the Dragons. So if so, Setu 2 would be the third option. So we'll plug him in. If not, we might be able to finesse some cash around our final positions. So at fullback, the two locked in are Kalen Ponga and Keanu Kinney, both underpriced, both for different reasons. Kalen Ponga just didn't have the best year last year. But with the new coach, Dylan Brown coming in as another attacking focal point, could really free up Ponga to do his thing. And Keanu Kinney, obviously injury affected last year, but came back, looked pretty good, and then obviously looked really good for New Zealand as well in the Pacific Championship. So happy to have both of them. That leaves us with 698k, so quite a bit to spend at the back in our flex. So I guess Tom Trbojevic, if he's fit and playing fullback, he is very tempting at the price. However, he is super injury prone. Um, so we could afford to go with the Cam Munster potentially. Upgrade from Purdue, but again, we'll sort of see how preseason shakes out. Sam Walker's an interesting one. But what I'm thinking for the flex is if we go all the way down, actually, I'll just search by halfback. And rather than using it as an attacking position to begin with, I'm going to try to use it as a bit of a cash maker. If I can find him. Got past it, obviously. And go with Daniel Atkinson. So, average 20 because a lot of his games were off the bench last year. Um, but even if he does play, he's probably not the main kicker in play or anything, but he does have that bit of attacking spark that the Dragons might be looking for. Um, and yeah, has averaged well in the past. I think, obviously some people would say, going too cheap halfbacks is it's a bit of a risk, but that's the whole point of the flex is, you can play that bit of a risk, and if it doesn't work out, if you've got a strong 17 around it, it doesn't really matter. So Atkinson's going to go in the flex, and in fact, I might swap him with Sanders. I'll probably play Sanders over Atkinson most weeks. But that does leave us with a lot of money, so I think we can buy one more centre wing. Obviously, if set of two players, we could distribute the money. Maybe, pick up a couple more of those mid-price second robbers. Um, like I said, we might start with Cam Munster, um, but let's have a look. So we can afford a pretty decent quality centre wing, like a Ruben Garrick kicking goals. I guess the question mark is just no DCE. How does their attack flow this year? Bradman Best. So if we do anticipate Newcastle to bounce back, um, is he a big part of that? Tavita Nafahu had a great start last year. Don't know if he's the starting choice with everyone back from injury. Yeah, so like Casey McLean is whatever. Alex Johnston will score tries, but that's about it. Shibasaki, Stags, the Broncos centers. Kolu Alamotti, does he get the start? A lot of people going for Latrell, but there's a bit of chat that his position is up in the air. Maybe if he does start at fullback, we put him in. If he starts out in the centres, I'm not 100% convinced there's a lot of value at that price. Um, Maybe you look at the players around him, like a Braden Burns, Xavier Coates, Phil Sammy. There's definitely, the upside is there, but how much, I'm not too sure. Brian Tyre is pretty popular, obviously based at Beast. We could look in something like that. Bit of chat around Sav Tamali. Obviously got injured, which curtailed his season, but 16 games sort of shows, I guess that's where he's about average is 55, but only young, so could potentially improve a few points. A few people keen on Selwyn Cobbo. Again, I want to see him in the starting team at the Dolphins before we commit to that. Jack Bostock coming back from injuries, one to keep an eye on. And then we're sort of down around the 500k options anyway. Um, so I think for now what we might do is we'll leave Certu 2 there. Um, so we can potentially bring in, a couple more of these second row options. Where are we? 400k. So like a Harry Lamuki and Hamish Stewart. I guess, well, actually, the other option I just thought of. So they go back to Lasardi and buy. So we could potentially upgrade our hookers a little bit. So Haywood and Smith out. So we could go with a combination of Simkin and Marnie. So both at low 400s, both, starting at their clubs, Manly, North Queensland, who could use their sort of attacking spark. Marnie can play 80 minutes. Obviously, was curtailed a bit last year by the Bulldogs transitioning to Haywood. Simpkin is helped by the fact that Lachlan Croke is medically retired. not much behind him in the hooking ranks there. So I do prefer them as an option if I can afford them. And I still have 200k to spend. So it could be a case of upgrading Lasardi or buy to another option. I guess if we go cheaper, actually, I guess what I was thinking is if we went a bit cheaper again, I'll see if we can swing it with the numbers. Where's Bailey and the cheese? Oh, that's right, we only had about 600k. I was thinking about trying to get Herbie Farnworth in, but we can't do it. So we'll just put two back in there. So we'll go with the two sort of upgraded hooker options. 200k to spend. We'll work with that in the pre-season. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with having a bit of cash in the bank at the moment. So based on this team, we'd probably have. So we could start a heap of options here. Definitely Kinney is locked in, but Mooney and McEwen I think are playable. Obviously, if you wanted to run with your bench halves, Pezzett. Obviously, I'm playing Sanders in my flex, so I think those are viable options as well. Um, yeah, so and then long way out, but the vice captaincy is pretty much locked in at the moment because Kalen plays in Vegas into Payne Haas, safe and secure against Penrith on a Friday night at Suncorp. Yeah, so we don't need to talk too much about that. But I guess the big thing now that we've put the team together is the leagues. I know people are very keen for it, so we've got the leagues here. Got the head-to-head league here. So the first league, the code is 324871. But basically, I'll try and monitor this. I've found that the first league usually fills up within 24 hours because you guys are all legends and are all onto my video straight away. So probably rather than adding in the code directly, go to the description below this video. I'll put the link in there, and when I create the second league, I'll just switch the links over in any and all videos so that everyone can access those. The open league though is unlimited entry, so that'll be the same. It'll be 668603. So looking at, just first past the post in terms of points. So feel free to join both. When we add multiple head-to-head leagues, maybe join one to start with, and then usually about the week leading into it, if you want to get into another one and we have spots, we'll make that happen. But I think that is about it for this video. So any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you're loving the fact that NRL Supercoach is back for 2026. Subscribe for all the fantasy sports content on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.